The Varan were the most feared creatures in the galaxy. They stood 3 meters tall. Their skin was covered in black scales that were harder than metal. They had claws that could cut through stone. Their eyes glowed like liquid copper. When they roared, the sound could be heard from miles away. For thousands of years, the Varan had conquered star system after star system. They destroyed entire planets. They killed without mercy. The Galactic Council had given them a special name. They called them Class Omega Predators. This meant they were too dangerous to talk to, too wild to make peace with. Every star map in the galaxy had their territory marked with red warnings in 40 different languages. Stay away. Death lives here. So when the colony ship Horizon's Dream lost power and crashed on Cora Prime, the 400 human survivors knew they were going to die. They had landed in Varan territory. There was no escape. Their communication systems were broken. No rescue would come. Captain Taiho stood in the wreckage and looked at his people. Many were hurt. Some were dying. They had children with them. Families, scientists, farmers. They had been traveling to start a new life on a distant planet. Now they would never see that planet. How long do we have? Asked Jisu, the ship's nurse. Her hands were covered in blood from treating the wounded. Taiho looked at the jungle around them. The trees were massive, with bark as black as night. Strange sounds came from the shadows. Days, maybe. Hours, if we're unlucky. Among the survivors was a young woman named Yuna. She was 23 years old. She had been studying to become a veterinarian before joining the colony mission. She loved animals. She had spent her whole life caring for creatures that could not speak for themselves. Right now, she was bandaging a child's broken arm when she heard the first growl. Everyone went silent. From the edge of the jungle, shapes began to appear. Massive shapes. The Varan hunting party emerged from the darkness like shadows given form. There were 12 of them. Each one was bigger than any creature Yuna had ever seen. Their copper eyes studied the humans with cold intelligence. "Nobody move," Taiho whispered. "Nobody make a sound." The humans stood frozen. Mothers covered their children's mouths. Men gripped whatever weapons they could find. Broken pipes. Sharp metal. Useless things against these monsters. The Varan circled the camp slowly. They were in no hurry. They knew their prey could not escape. One of them, the largest, stepped forward and sniffed the air. His eyes moved from human to human, counting them like a farmer counting livestock before slaughter. Yuna watched them. Her heart was beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. But she did not look away. She studied the creatures that would kill her. The way they moved. The way they breathed. The way they looked at each other. Then she saw it. Behind the hunting party, moving slowly, was a small shape. A cub. It was barely the size of a large dog. Its scales had not yet hardened to black. They were still gray, still soft. And it was limping. One of its back legs was wounded. Even from this distance, Yuna could see the swelling, the strange color of infection. The cub tried to keep up with the adults, but it was in pain. It stumbled and fell. One of the adult Varan turned to look at it, made a low sound, and then turned back to watch the humans. The cub struggled to stand again. Yuna felt something move in her chest. It was the same feeling she got whenever she saw an injured animal. A pull. A need to help. Before she knew what she was doing, she was walking forward. "Yuna!" Taiho grabbed her arm. His face was white with fear. "What are you doing? That thing will tear you apart." She looked at him with calm eyes. "It's hurt." She pulled her arm free and kept walking. The adult Varan went rigid. All 12 of them turned to face her. Their growls filled the air like thunder. In Varan culture, approaching a cub was the worst crime imaginable. They protected their young with insane devotion. Any creature that came near a cub would be torn to pieces. But Yuna did not stop. She walked past the massive adults. She could feel their breath on her skin, hot, smelling of blood and meat. Any one of them could kill her with a single swipe. But she did not look at them. She looked only at the small, limping cub. She knelt down in front of it. The cub looked up at her with frightened copper eyes. It tried to growl, but the sound came out weak, pathetic. It was just a baby. A scared, hurt baby. "It's okay," Yuna said softly. "I won't hurt you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the small medical kit she always carried. She opened it slowly, letting the cub see everything. Bandages, cleaning solution, antibiotic cream. The adult Varan watched. They did not attack. Something about this small human confused them. She had no weapons. She showed no fear. She moved slowly, gently, like water flowing over stones. Yuna cleaned the wound on the cub's leg. It was infected badly. A few more days and the cub would have died from it. She applied medicine and wrapped the leg carefully in clean bandages. The whole time she talked to the cub in a soft voice. "There you go. That wasn't so bad, was it? You're very brave." When she finished, the cub did something strange. Something no Voran had ever done to an outsider. It pressed its small snout against her palm and began to purr. The adult Voran stared. Yuna smiled and gently scratched behind the cub's ear. The hunting party did not kill the humans that day. Instead, they retreated into the jungle, taking their healed cub with them. The last thing Yuna saw was the cub looking back at her over its mother's shoulder. Its copper eyes seemed to say thank you. When the Voran were gone, Taiho walked up to Yuna. His hands were shaking. "How did you know they wouldn't kill you?" Yuna watched the jungle where the Voran had disappeared. "I didn't," she said. "But it was hurt. I had to try." That night, as the humans built fires and tried to sleep, none of them noticed the shadows watching from the edge of the jungle. Copper eyes glowing in the darkness. The Voran had not left. They were still there, watching, waiting. Something had changed. They just didn't know what yet. 3 weeks passed after the crash. The human survivors had built a small camp from the wreckage of their ship. They made tents from torn metal sheets. They found a stream nearby for water. They ate the strange fruits that grew in the jungle, testing each one carefully to make sure it would not poison them. Every day, they expected the Voran to return and kill them. Every day. Nothing happened. Captain Taiho did not understand. The Voran were hunters. They killed everything that entered their territory. This was known throughout the galaxy. So why were the humans still alive? "Maybe they forgot about us," said one of the colonists. "Voran don't forget," Taiho replied. "They're planning something." But Yuna had a different idea. Sometimes, when she was working at the edge of camp, she would see shapes in the jungle. Massive shapes watching from between the black trees. They never came closer. They never attacked. They just watched. And sometimes, late at night, she heard something that sounded almost like singing coming from deep in the forest. On the 22nd day after the crash, everything changed. The sun had just risen. Yuna was boiling water to clean bandages when a shadow fell over her. She looked up and felt her breath stop in her throat. A Voran stood at the edge of the camp. He was the largest one she had ever seen. His scales were not just black, but seemed to absorb the light around him. His face was covered in old scars. His copper eyes were tired and ancient. This was not a young hunter. This was an elder. A leader. In his massive arms, he held something small. A cub. The cub was barely moving. Its breathing was shallow and fast. Its scales were covered in terrible wounds, deep cuts that oozed dark blood. Something had attacked it. something with claws and teeth. The cub was dying. The camp erupted in panic. People screamed and ran. Men grabbed weapons. Children cried for their mothers, but the Voran elder did not attack. He did not even look at the other humans. His copper eyes found Yuna and locked onto her like she was the only person in the world. Human. Female, he said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Deep. Ancient. Terrible. The translator device that Taiho wore on his belt crackled and struggled to keep up. Fix, the elder said. Holding out the dying cub, Yuna stood up slowly. Her legs were shaking, but she forced them to be still. She looked at the cub in the elder's arms. It was in bad shape. Very bad shape. If she did not help it soon, it would die. Bring it inside, she said. The elder followed her into the medical tent. Jisoo was already there, organizing supplies. When she saw the massive Voran ducking through the tent opening, she dropped everything and pressed herself against the wall. Yuna, she whispered, her voice high with fear. What are you doing? My job, Yuna said. Help me. For the next 6 hours, Yuna and Jisoo worked on the cub. They cleaned its wounds. They drained the infections. They stitched the torn flesh back together. They gave it fluids and medicine and everything else they had. The whole time, the Voran elder stood in the corner and watched. His copper eyes never blinked. His claws were long enough to cut both women in half with a single swipe. One wrong move, one cry of pain from the cub, and he could kill them before they even knew what happened. But Yuna was not thinking about that. She was thinking about the small creature on her table, the way its chest rose and fell with each labored breath, the way its little claws twitched in its sleep. She hummed softly as she worked. It was a song her mother used to sing to her when she was sick. A simple song about sunshine and flowers. Silly, childish, but it kept her hands steady and her mind calm. The elder tilted his head at the sound. He had never heard anything like it. Finally, after 6 long hours, the cub opened its eyes. It made a small sound. Weak, confused, but alive. Yuna smiled down at it. Hello, little one. You scared us for a while there. The cub looked at her. Then it looked at the elder. Then it made another sound, stronger this time. Hungry. The elder moved forward. Yuna forced herself not to step back as the massive creature approached. He bent down and looked at the cub. He touched its face gently with one huge claw. The cub nuzzled against him. Then the elder made a sound. The translator could not process it. It was a word, clearly, but not one that existed in the galactic database. Taiho, who had been watching from outside the tent, checked the device again and again. What did he say? Jisoo asked. Taiho shook his head. I don't know. The word doesn't exist in any Voran dialect we have on record. Later, much later, they would learn what the word meant. It meant gratitude. It was a word that the Voran had not spoken in over 2,000 years. The elder looked at Yuna one more time. Then he picked up his cub gently and walked out of the camp. He disappeared into the jungle without another word. That night, the humans could not sleep. They talked in low voices about what had happened. Was it a trick? A test? What did the Voran want? Yuna did not join the discussion. She sat by the fire and stared into the flames. She was thinking about the elder's eyes when he looked at his healed cub. The softness there. The love. They were not so different from humans, she thought. They loved their children. They felt fear and hope and gratitude. They were not just monsters. The next morning, Yuna woke to the sound of voices outside her tent. Frightened voices. She pulled on her clothes and stepped outside. 3 Voran stood at the edge of the camp. Each one was holding a cub. One cub had a broken arm. One had a fever. One had strange spots on its scales that could be a disease or a parasite. The Voron did not attack. They did not threaten. They just stood there, holding their sick children, and looked at Una. "Human female," one of them said. "Fix." Una looked at the three cubs. Then at the jungle behind the Voron. More shapes were moving in the shadows. More copper eyes watching. She took a deep breath. "Bring them in," she said. And that was how it began. Word spread through the Voron clans faster than fire through dry grass. There was a human on Cora Prime who could heal cubs. A soft creature who touched wounds without causing pain. Who sang strange songs that made cubs sleep peacefully. Who was not afraid. They called her the Healer Dot, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the Voron had hope. 2 months had passed since the crash. The human camp had changed completely. What had started as a collection of broken tents and desperate survivors was now a real settlement. The Voron had brought materials. Strange metals that were light but strong. Wood from trees that humans could not cut by themselves. Meat from animals that humans could not hunt. In exchange, the humans had only one thing to offer. Una. Every morning, before the sun rose, a line would form outside the medical tent. Voron mothers and fathers carrying their cubs. Some cubs were sick. Some were injured. Some were just there because their parents wanted the healer to look at them, to touch them, to say they were healthy and strong. The line sometimes stretched all the way to the edge of the jungle. Hannah, the colony's biologist, spent every day taking notes. She watched everything. She recorded everything. She could not believe what she was seeing. "This is impossible," she told Captain Taiho one evening. "The Voron have never trusted any other species. Not in 10,000 years of recorded history. They killed entire civilizations just for getting too close to their territory." Taiho nodded. "So why trust us?" Hannah shook her head. "Not us, her." She pointed at Una, who was currently being followed around the camp by 5 young cubs. They moved wherever she moved. They sat when she sat. When she ate her lunch, they gathered around her and watched every bite like it was the most interesting thing in the universe. One of the cubs was Duri. He was the first cub Una had healed. The one with the infected leg. That had been 2 months ago. Now he was almost as tall as Una herself. His scales had darkened from gray to deep black. His copper eyes were bright and curious, but he still followed Una everywhere. "Pretty," he said, dropping a mangled flower at her feet. He had torn it from a bush near the stream. Roots and dirt were still attached. Una smiled and took the flower. "Thank you, Duri. It's beautiful." Duri's chest puffed out with pride. He made a rumbling sound that meant happiness. The other cubs saw this and immediately ran off to find their own gifts. Within an hour, Una had a pile of offerings next to her tent. Flowers, interesting rocks, a dead animal that one of the cubs was very proud of, and somehow an entire small tree that a larger cub had pulled out of the ground. "They're like puppies," Jisoo laughed. "Very large, very dangerous puppies." "They're children," Una said. "All children want to give gifts to people they love." That word surprised even Una when she said it. Love. Did the Voron cubs love her? Did she love them? She looked at Duri, who was trying to arrange his flower pile in a nice pattern. His tongue stuck out of his mouth in concentration. He looked ridiculous. Yes, she thought. I think I do. The changes went beyond the camp. Cubs who had been through Una's care grew up different from other Voron. They were calmer, more curious, less aggressive. They asked questions about humans, about other species, about the galaxy beyond their planet. Old traditions began to break. For the first time, young Voron started talking about the possibility of peace with other worlds. The Galactic Council noticed. 3 months after the crash, A ship appeared in the sky above Cora Prime. It landed near the human camp with great caution. The council had sent an ambassador to see what was happening. Her name was Kiva. She was a Talani, a bird-like species with bright feathers and sharp eyes. She had been a diplomat for over 60 years. She had negotiated with hundreds of species. She had seen everything the galaxy had to offer, or so she thought. When she stepped off her ship, 2 Voran guards approached her. She prepared to die. The Talani and the Voran had been enemies for centuries. Her people had lost 3 colonies to Voran attacks, but the guards did not kill her. They looked at her with calm copper eyes. "You are here to see the healer," one of them said. It was not a question. Kiva nodded slowly. "This way." They led her through the settlement. Kiva saw humans and Voran walking side by side. She saw human children playing with Voran cubs. She saw a human man teaching a group of young Voran how to read from a datapad. This was impossible. Everything about this was impossible. Then she saw the clinic. It was a proper building now, made from Voran metal and human design. A sign hung above the door with symbols in both languages. And outside the clinic, there was a line. 20 Voran, maybe more, each one holding a cub. They stood in perfect order, waiting patiently. They did not push or fight. They just waited. The door opened, and a young human woman stepped out. "Next, please," Una said with a smile. A massive Voran mother walked forward, her tiny cub clutched carefully in her arms. The cub was making unhappy sounds. It did not want to be here. Una reached out and touched the cub's face gently. "Hello, little one. What's wrong today?" The cub stopped crying. It looked at Una with wide copper eyes. Then it made a sound that Kiva's translator identified as contentment. Kiva watched as Una took the cub inside. She watched as the other Voran in line waited without complaint. She watched as a group of cubs who had already been treated played near the clinic, watched over by both human and Voran adults. "This is impossible," she whispered. Captain Taiho appeared beside her. He looked tired but happy. "That's just Tuesday around here," he said. KIVA stayed on Cora Prime for 2 weeks. She observed everything. She took recordings. She interviewed humans and Voran alike. When she returned to the Galactic Council, her report changed everything. The Voran, the most feared species in the galaxy, had found something they valued more than conquest. They had found someone worth protecting, and her name was Una. The Council did not know what to do with this information. Some members wanted to use it to manipulate the Voran through their new weakness. Others wanted to destroy Cora Prime before the Voran became even more powerful. But Kiva argued against both options. "They are not weak," she said. "They are changing. And change, true change, is the most powerful thing in the universe." The Council listened. For now. Back on Cora Prime, Una knew nothing about galactic politics. She was too busy. The line outside her clinic was getting longer every day. Not everyone was happy with the changes on Cora Prime. In the southern territories, far from the human settlement, there was a Voran warlord named Varn. He was old. He was powerful. He had killed more enemies than any other Voran alive. His body was covered in scars from 1,000 battles, and he was angry. Varn had built his life on strength, on violence, on the old ways. The Voran were predators. They were conquerors. They did not make friends with weak, soft creatures. They did not wait in lines like livestock waiting to be fed. When he heard about the human healer, when he heard about the cubs who followed her around like pets, he felt sick. "This is weakness," he told his followers. "This is poison. These humans are destroying us from the inside." His followers agreed. There were many Voran who felt the same way. They missed the old days. They missed the fear they used to inspire. They did not want peace. They wanted blood. Varn called for a meeting of the Varn High Council. The council met in a great stone chamber deep in the mountains. Hundreds of Varn gathered to hear what Varn had to say. Among them was Rock, the elder who had brought the first cub to Yuna. Among them was Dory, now fully grown, his black scales shining in the torchligh to Varn stood in the center of the chamber and spoke. "We are Varn," he said. His voice echoed off the walls. "We are predators. For 10,000 years, we have been the greatest power in the galaxy. Other species trembled at our name. Now look at us. We wait in lines. We bring our cubs to soft creatures for healing. We have become pets." Some of the Varn growled in agreement. "The humans must go," Varn continued. "They must leave our planet or die. This is the only way to restore our..." Rock stepped forward. "The humans have done nothing but help us. They have healed our cubs. They have asked for nothing in return." "That is the danger," Varn snapped. "They have made us soft. They have made us forget who we are." The council argued for hours. Some supported Varn. Some supported Rock. No agreement could be reached. Finally, Varn made a challenge. "Let combat decide," he said. "I will fight the humans' champion. If I win, they leave. If I lose, I will accept them." This was the old way, the ancient law. No Varn could refuse such a challenge. Rock's copper eyes were sad. "You know the humans cannot defeat you. They are not built for combat." Varn smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then they should not have come to our world. Word of the challenge reached the human settlement by nightfall. Captain Taiho called an emergency meeting. "I'll fight," he said. He was a soldier. He had training. He had experience. "You'll die," Hana said bluntly. "Varn has killed thousands. You wouldn't last 10 seconds. Then what do we do?" Jisoo asked. "Run? Hide?" "We can't run," Taiho said. "Our ship is destroyed. We have nowhere to go." The meeting went on for hours. Plans were made and rejected. Arguments broke out. Fear spread through the camp like a diseased dot through all of it. Yuna sat quietly and listened. She watched her friends fight and worry. She watched the Vorn cubs gather nervously outside the meeting tent. They knew something was wrong. They could feel it. Finally, Yuna stood up. "I'll go," she said. Everyone went silent. "What?" Taiho stared at her. "Yuna, no." "Absolutely not. He'll kill you." "Maybe," she said. "But this is my fault. They came here because of me. If anyone should face Varn, it's me." "This is insane," Jisoo said. "You can't fight. You've never fought anyone in your life." Yuna smiled sadly. "I'm not going to fight. Not really. I'm going to stand." No one understood what she meant, but no one could change her mind. The next day, the combat took place in a great arena carved into the mountainside. Thousands of Vorn gathered to watch. The humans came too, their faces pale with fear. Varn stood in the center of the arena. He was massive. His claws gleamed in the sunlight. His copper eyes burned with contempt as he watched Yuna walk toward him. "This is your champion?" He laughed. "This small, soft thing? I almost feel guilty." Yuna said nothing. She just stood there, looking at him. "Any last words, human?" Yuna took a deep breath. "I'm not here to beat you. I'm here to show them who I am." The fight began. It was not really a fight. Varn was too fast, too strong, too experienced. He hit Yuna and she fell. She stood up. He hit her again. She fell again. She stood up again. Blood ran down her face. Her legs shook. Her body screamed at her to stay down. But she stood. Varn was confused. He expected her to beg, to cry, to give up. That was what prey did. But this small creature kept standing. Again and again and again. "What are you?" he growled. "Stubborn," Una gasped. "It's a human thing." Varn knocked her down again. Harder this time. She lay still for a long moment. The arena was silent. Then, slowly, she began to push herself up. Varn raised his claw to finish her. And then something happened that no one expected. Dhuri stepped into the arena. The crowd gasped. This was against all rules. Combat was sacred. No one interfered, but Dhuri did not care. He walked to Una and stood in front of her, facing Varn. "Move," Varn commanded. "No," Dhuri said. Then Rock stepped into the arena. And another Varn, and another. Dozens of them. Cubs that Una had healed, now grown. They formed a wall between her and Varn. "She is ours," Dhuri growled. His copper eyes blazed with something that the Varn had not felt for a long time. Not anger. Not anger. Not hatred. Protection. Love. Our healer. Our pack. Varn looked at the wall of Vorin standing against him. These were not weak cubs anymore. These were warriors. And they would die before they let him touch their human. "You choose her over your own kind?" Varn asked. Rok spoke. His ancient voice was strong. "She is our kind. She has been our kind since the first day she helped a wounded cub. Family is not about blood. Family is about choice." Varn stood alone. His followers had not joined him in the arena. They watched from the crowd, uncertain, for a long moment. No one moved. Then Varn did something no one expected. He lowered his claws. "I yield," he said. Quietly. The arena erupted in noise. Cheering, crying, roaring. The sound was deafening. Dhuri turned and gently picked up Una. She was barely conscious. Blood covered her face. But she was smiling. "You came," she whispered. "Always," Dhuri said. "You are pack. Pack protects pack." As Dhuri carried her out of the arena, Una saw something strange. In the crowd, Varn were crying. Great. Massive predators with tears running down their scaled faces. They had forgotten what family felt like. She had helped them remember. 5 years had passed since the crash. Cora Prime was a different world now. The small human camp had grown into a beautiful city. Buildings made from Varn metal and human design rose toward the sky. Gardens bloomed with flowers from both Earth and Cora Prime. Children played in the streets. Some had smooth skin. Some had scales. They chased each other and laughed together. Una stood on the balcony of the medical center and watched the city wake up. The twin suns were rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere below, she could hear Varn voices singing the morning song. Humans had started joining them. The sound was strange but beautiful. "You should eat something." Una turned. Dhuri stood behind her, holding a plate of fruit. He was huge now, over 3 meters tall. His black scales gleamed like armor. His copper eyes were gentle. "You always say that," Una smiled. "You always forget to eat," Dhuri replied. "Someone has to remind you." Una took the plate and sat down. Dhuri sat beside her. He was too big for the human chairs, so he simply sat on the floor. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Una asked. Dhuri made a low sound. "I was small. My leg hurt. You fixed it. You were so scared." "I was not scared," Dhuri said with dignity. "I was cautious." Una laughed. It felt good to laugh. A lot had changed in 5 years. The Galactic Council had officially reclassified the Varn. They were no longer called Class Omega Predators. Now they were listed as protected allies of Earth. Human ships could visit Cora Prime freely. Vorin ships could visit human colonies. Some species were angry about this. The Varan had caused so much pain over the centuries, so much death. How could they be forgiven so easily? But the Varan did not ask for forgiveness. They did not pretend that the past had not happened. They simply said, "We are different now. Judge us by what we do, not by what we did." Not everyone accepted this. But more did every year. Yuna's clinic had grown into a proper medical center. Human doctors worked beside Voran healers. They learned from each other. Human medicine was good at some things. Voran medicine was good at others. Together, they were better than either could be alone. Myra, Yuna's young assistant, came running up the stairs. She was out of breath, her face flushed with excitement. "She's here," Myra said. "The baby is here." Yuna stood up quickly. She had been waiting for this. In the main room of the medical center, a Varan mother stood holding her newborn cub. The cub was tiny. Its scales were soft gray. Its eyes were not yet open. It made small sounds as it pressed against its mother's chest. Around the room, dozens of Varan had gathered. This was a special moment. A sacred moment. The mother walked forward and placed her cub in Yuna's arms. This had become tradition over the past 5 years. No Varan cub's life truly began until the healer held them. Until she welcomed them into the world, Yuna looked down at the tiny creature in her arms. It was so small, so fragile, so full of possibility. "Hello, little one," she said softly. "Welcome to the world. You're going to do amazing things." "I know it." The cub opened its eyes for the first time. Copper, like all Varan. But there was something else there too. Curiosity, hope. Yuna handed the cub back to its mother. The room erupted in the Varan sound of celebration. Deep rumbles and high keens mixed together in a song of joy. Later that evening, Yuna sat with Duri on a hill overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting now. The sky was purple and gold. "You changed everything," Duri said. "The whole galaxy is different because of you." Yuna shook her head. "I didn't change anything. I just saw who you really were." Duri was quiet for a moment. "We were monsters." "No," Yuna said firmly. "You were hurt. You were scared. You had forgotten how to trust. That doesn't make you monsters. That makes you people who needed help." Duri looked at her. After 5 years, he still did not fully understand humans. They were so small, so soft, so easy to break. And yet they were the strongest creatures he had ever known. "How did you know?" he asked. "That first day, when you walked toward me, when all the adults were ready to kill you. How did you know we wouldn't?" Yuna thought about this. She remembered that day clearly. The fear, the uncertainty, the small limping cub with the infected leg. "I didn't know," she admitted. "I just knew you were hurt. And when someone is hurt, you help them. You don't think about what they might do. You just help, even if they might kill you." "Even then," Yuna smiled. "Especially then, because that's when they need help the most." In the distance, a new ship was landing. More humans, more colonists. They had come from all over the galaxy, drawn by stories of the impossible peace on Kara Prime. And at the edge of the landing zone, a line of Varan cubs waited patiently. They were curious about the newcomers, ready to welcome them, ready to show them that the monsters in the stories were not monsters at all. "My people tell stories about you now," Duri said. "They say you are magic, a spirit who came from the stars to save us." "I'm not magic," Yuna laughed. "I'm just stubborn." "That is what makes you magic," Duri replied. They sat in comfortable silence as the suns finished setting and the stars came out. Millions of stars, millions of worlds. And on one small planet, 2 species had found something that the galaxy had thought impossible. Friendship, trust, love. Yuna leaned against Duri's massive shoulder. He was warm, safe, family. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if our ship hadn't crashed here?" she asked. "No," Deary said. "What is the point of wondering about things that did not happen? We are here. You are here. That is enough." Una smiled. He was right far below, in the city. The night shift was starting at the medical center. Human and Vaughn doctors prepared for another night of healing. In the nursery, cubs born under both suns slept peacefully, dreaming of a future their grandparents could never have imagined. And outside the clinic, even in the darkness, a small line was forming. Cubs who needed care, parents who trusted, a future being built. One patient at a time, once feared as beasts, now family. And it all started because one young woman saw a hurt cub and decided to help. That was the human way. That was magic. That was enough.